education. And today we're discussing a very important topic, and I think a topic that all of us do have a lot of, coffee conversations about, which is the role and purpose of education and the role and purpose of a career counselor. As we know today, that gone are the days when the career counselor assumed a rather unimportant role in the school. But today, as we all know, that the aspirations of students have grown, their dreams have grown a lot bigger, and so has the need and the role of college counselors. They are playing such an imperative and critical role in the school ecosystem today. So it's very important for us to sort of understand that what is the mindset that a counselor has, how is it changing with the changing purpose of education. As we know, we have gone through four industrial revolutions. Clearly the market, the professional world is changing, so the changing needs of education are also taking place. So in all of this context, how are career counselors operating in schools? How are they preparing the students for all that's out there? So we will be discussing this and a lot more. So while we brainstorming that who we should be doing this conversation with, and which is the school that we should be looking at to sort of collaborate with for this series. I think without a doubt, the first school that came to our mind, and the first person actually who came to our mind before the school, was Miss Chandni Singh, who is the college advisor at the modern School Vasant Vihar in Delhi. As we know, a very leading institution in the country, very well known for the college placements that they have year on year. And clearly, you have the person sitting with you today who is behind all of those great college placements. So, a big and huge warm welcome to Chandni. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'm really excited to be chatting with you.
Hi Kritika, thank you so much. Thank you to you and Smriti for inviting me for this conversation. And I don't know whether eminent or not, and I don't like to, take all the credit for the wonderful college placements that the school, the students come back with, because I really believe it is the students who are the protagonists, and they are the ones who put in all that effort. But of course, you're very right in saying that in today's day and age, the college counselor has come to assume a very, very important role, because there are so many influences around that, students look forward to that anchor in their life, that one point that they can go back to rely on, depend on, trust with all the information that is out there. So yeah, in that sense, I feel that college counselors, like all of us, play a super important role. So thank you so much for inviting me, to have this most important conversation, and a very warm welcome to all my lovely fellow counselors who are joining in for this discussion. I really hope that all of us, me included, can take back something of value from this discussion. So thank you so much for conducting these enriching sessions.
Thank you so much, Amni. And as you rightly said, I mean, we're all here and like an open forum where we're going to discuss about various things that we do talk about otherwise, but have never spoken about in an open forum. So let's deep dive into this conversation. I mean, my viewers who are joining me, you know the drill already. Make sure you're sending us all your questions, and we'll make sure to make the same a part of our conversation with this thing today. So, straight into it, Janvi, what, according to you, is the purpose of education, and how do college counselors help in achieving that purpose of education today?
Yeah, so that's a great question to start with, Kritika, and I think that's a very fundamental question, in fact, and it's very difficult to answer that one, but I'd like to use the aid of a story here, because this particular story has had a deep impact on me, and I think stories have that way, of they just make their way into a person's life and stay, and we can very easily go back to them. So this is a story narrated by an elementary school teacher. He had quite a few students with him in his class, but there was this one girl who was really lagging behind and not being able to cope very well academically. And all of the teachers had given up on her, and even this class teacher was beginning to give up on her. In fact, one teacher very callously remarked that human beings are just like fruit. 20 to 30% is always worthless, and there's nothing one can do about it. So that was the kind of remark that came in from one teacher. And I guess that's the kind of pressure that teachers feel when they're working with so many students. But this particular class teacher somewhere did not feel like giving up on this girl. So during one recess, he happened to notice her struggling with a puzzle, and he really wanted to reach out to her and help her. But before he could, this girl had already solved the puzzle. And when he saw that expression of delight on her face, how excited and happy she was, and yet there was no one around to celebrate with her, that's the moment he realized that this girl really wanted to succeed badly. And all that she needed was support, someone to just, be there for her. So in that moment, this educator felt a lot of remorse over his attitude, and he questioned himself and his whole educational philosophy, because he told himself that as an educator, wasn't he supposed to instill that confidence in every student of his, so that they could feel that they could accomplish anything if they really tried? But instead, this educator had planted a feeling of inferiority in this girl. So in that was a moment of transformation for this educator, and he wanted to examine the matter further. So he reached out to the parents, realized that parents who were both graduates of leading universities were in fact calling the girl stupid many a times at home. That was their own daughter. But they could not take the fact that their daughter was not doing well in school. So this is the reason why the girl had decided that she's worthless, because the parents only did not, have faith in her. So that's when this educator decided that he will praise her so many times in a day, like that, and he'll keep praising her till he is able to wash away the stain of criticism from her heart. So he really took that challenge upon himself, worked very hard with her for over a year. It was difficult and challenging, but slowly and steadily, that girl was able to, experience the joy of learning. So essentially, she came into her own, and not only did she go on to graduate school, she graduated university, and she went on to become a pharmacist. So, all in all, I think the message of this story is rather simple. It is that the purpose of education is not excelling in the subjects that we are being taught in school, but the whole purpose of education and learning is that in the course of coming into contact with learning about language and culture and history and geography and math and science, which is basically learning about the world around you, what the student should be able to do is to learn about themselves, who they are, and basically be able to discover their own strengths and abilities, because each life has some unique strengths and abilities. So if education, the process of education is able to make them aware of their unique skills and abilities, then that's a lifelong thing. Because wherever it is that they go in life, because they are now aware of those skills and abilities, they will always be able to use those to overcome any situation in their life. So the purpose of education is the happiness of the learner. And for us as counselors or any educators, there are so many of us working in the field of education. It's very important to understand that we must facilitate this process of discovery for the student. That's our prime responsibility as educators, really. So I hope I've answered your question.
I think that's wonderfully put, Chandni, and very, very, very rightly said that education is not just about excelling or just like knowledge derivation, but it's also about enablement and about igniting the joy of learning. I think with somewhere, with the rat race has kind of got misplaced. But that is what we need to do as educators, like rather be facilitators of making sure that they enjoy what they're learning and they're learning like essential sort of skills. Now, as we started the conversation in your opening remarks, you also mentioned about how the counseling landscape has totally changed in India. So in this question, I'd like to know from you that what is the sort of role that a counselor is playing today in the school ecosystem? And as when I when I communicate and interact with the counselor fraternity, I also really appreciate the different hats that all of you are donning. It's not just a college advisor or a counselor, but a lot more than that. So if you could just throw some light on this aspect as well.
Yeah, sure, Kritika. So you're right, we don many hats. And I think that as we go along, we realize that there is so much more to college counseling than just the administrative side of it. In fact, whenever it is that we start this journey with parents and students, they also wonder that, what is your area of responsibility all about? And it becomes so difficult to explain it in as many words, because it's only when you're done with the journey that, one realizes that there's so much to it. But, going back to the time when I started as a college advisor, the first 2 years were spent on the administrative side of things, which is very essential, right? That's such an important part of what a college advisor does. So essentially, that means that being in touch with all the students, knowing where they want to go, where they want to apply, having a decent idea of what the different educational systems require. So, just being able to understand those requirements, putting together school documentation, which, by the way, is not at all easy because there are as many students. There are a lot of hard work goes behind all of that. And, one has to really work very hard to bring efficiency into that system as well, because in the middle of talking to parents and students and being in touch with universities, there is just a lot that goes on. So this is all the administrative side, which is critical, I agree, and that's what one focuses on in the initial part of one's journey as a college counselor, and that always remains. But as one goes deeper into it, one realizes that there is more that one needs to do if one wants to really make a positive impact as a college counselor. So I would say that the coordination part of it is very, very important as well, which means that one has to understand that there are many more stakeholders in this process, those being the parents. So, parents want to be involved, and rightly so, because it is that age where, everything cannot be left up to the student. So, parents are important stakeholders, so being in touch with them. Teachers are super important because actually they are the ones who are spending more time with each student. So, in that sense, they know each student much better than the college counselor does. So, being in constant contact with them. And then, most importantly, being in touch with all universities, like your university as well, really understanding what their ethos is, what their culture philosophy is, and then being able to understand when my students, be able to thrive in that university setup or not. So the coordination part is an important role that the college counselor plays. And but having said, all of this, what I have come to understand from whatever little bit of experience that I have as a college advisor is that the core of the college counselor's role is conversing with the student and bringing constant contact with the student. So, all our activities ultimately, if they're not student centric, we will definitely lose the plot. It will feel like a very corporate job at the end of the day. And we have to really, really recognize when that starts happening, because the day that happens, I think we will stop playing the role that we're supposed to play, which is to really advocate for the students. So, in fact, the most formidable task of a counselor is to know the student, to really be able to understand them and where they are coming from. And there are many ways and means of doing that. We understand students have a schedule in school, so it's difficult to meet with them enough. But if we have that heart and spirit of being able to understand that even in that one meeting, I think we will be able to do justice to our role. So, I've had students who come into me for the first meeting. They just, some of them just come and say, this is our plan, this is where we want to apply, and this is what we want to do. And that's the end of that. And then, of course, I'm doing, handling the process for them. And then intermittently, they'll come in and say maybe they've not gotten an offer from a university or when something goes wrong and they just kind of reach out. But, one has to understand that it is during these moments, if the counselor is really there for the student as a friend, then they open up, okay? And the more they trust you, the more you're able to create a relationship of trust with them, they will start learning to trust themselves. So, all in all, what I've realized is that rather than looking at the college application process just as a process that, okay, I have to get these placements for the year, if I look at the process as a means to help the student know themselves better and to find meaning even in those failures, then somewhere, I am really playing my part well. If I can be that trusted friend for my student, then I feel that that is the most important role that we are meant to play. So if I can base all my activities on this spirit, then I think we'll do a great job of what activities we want to bring in, how we want to reach out to our students, etc., etc. Then all of the rest of it, it just falls into place. So this is something which I've been experiencing, and I think it works because even students of mine who are now placed wherever they're done with college, they're done with their masters, and they're working in XYZ companies, they're still in touch. Because it's that bond, that relationship of trust and friendship which remains. Yeah.
That's lovely, Chandni. I mean, if I had to, put it, I feel like, a career counselor, college advisor actually initiates the process of self-discovery in students. And that's the true aim of this. It's a very myopic view that certain people take that, oh, a college counselor's job is only to get college placements. No. I mean, it's rather to actually counsel students to make sure they're reaching the destination that their heart and passion desires, and helping them look inside and figure out what is it that they want. And I think that's a very important role that counselors play in the school ecosystem today. And like you said, you require to be, sometimes you need to be a friend, sometimes you also need to be a bit of a psychological counselor of sorts. Sometimes you're just expected to be a great sounding board where they can just come and vent, since it's also a very critical time in their lives. So clearly, there's a lot more that a counselor needs to possess than just, being very adept and understanding college applications and the college admissions process. So, having said that, that's going to lead me to my next question. That according to you, what are the necessary attributes of character traits that a good counselor must possess?
Yeah, that's a tough one, Kritika, and I can think of so many, because we do this a lot for our students, right? Like when we write our reference letters, we think of all the wonderful qualities that our students possess, academic and personal. But I feel like every life has a core quality, right? A defining quality. So one or two qualities that really define that life. And if I have to narrow it down to two that any college counselor should have or work, build on in their life, I would say that the first, just give me a moment.
So, to all my audience members joining me today, we're having this very interesting conversation on the role of college counselors today, how it's transforming, what are the sort of qualities that a college counselor must possess in the changing times today. What we also discussed earlier was what is it that a college counselor does. So, we have Chandni back again. Over to you,
Yeah,
Chandni.
I'm so sorry for that little disturbance. So, yeah, the first quality, which is very essential, I'd say, is compassion. And I'm very sure that all my fellow counselors who are here on this call would agree with this one. Because if the basis is compassion, I think we'll go very right. And compassion, as we understand it, is not simply to feel for a student, or to it's of course it encompasses many things. But I think what I mean by compassion is that when we come across students who are maybe not giving enough value to our opinion, we do come across tough students. I think all of us do. Most of them are very tough to work with. They go through various things. I have personally come across students who tend to border on being very rude, just the way they talk and their conduct. Some of them tend to be arrogant. They like to throw their weight around, and they display all these different things at different points in time. But if, as a counselor, I dismiss them on the basis of what they're manifesting at that point in time, then somewhere I'm doing a great disservice, to being a college counselor. And it's very important for me to recognize that this is very temporary. And, that's my responsibility to really still support the student and to really believe in the student's unique potential. So it's like a mother, like if out of my two kids, I have one who's more difficult, I'll not dismiss that child. That child is still my child, and I'll still work with that child come what may. So I think the words of the Nobel laureate Gabriela Mistral of Chile, who was a very well-respected humanistic educator, it really very beautifully summarizes what compassion is. So I'll just share some of her words, and I think all of us will be able to understand what true compassion is. So she writes that, let me be more mother than the mother herself in my love and defense of the child who is not flesh of my flesh. Help me to make one of my children my most perfect poem and leave within him or her my most melodious melody from that day when my own lips no longer sing. So I think this is really intense. It's to say that, work so hard with each student that even when we are not there in their life, that effort that we put in and that trust that we have put into their life, it remains with them forever, and they can further go on and put that trust in another life. So that is the kind of compassion that I'm talking about. And secondly, I would say that ingenuity is another quality that a college counselor must possess. It means always figuring out new ways of doing things. I think it's very important, because I have seen myself getting stuck in a rut where I feel that, oh, I was like this when I was a school student, and this is the way I used to work. And I always go back to comparing my students to how I was or how some of my better students were. And again, I feel like giving up. But then, if I understand that each student has very unique needs, and I am the one who has to brainstorm and understand ways of being able to work with this particular student, then somewhere I will be able to make a headway. So here I want to share a super short story, Kritika. It's a story which had been shared by Mahatma Gandhi with his grandson, and I think it's very powerful. He shared the story of the starfish who'd been washed ashore by the waves, and this was near dawn. And this man, wanting to save all these starfish, started tossing them back into the water, because if the sun would come out, these starfish would dry out and they would all die. So those who were passing by, they were kind of laughing at this man, saying that you cannot save all of them. What are you even trying to do? There's so many of them on the beach. He said, he picked up one starfish, and he said, but with this one starfish, it makes the difference. So I will try. So I think, rather than feeling very overwhelmed that there's so many students and so many lives and how can I impact them all, it's most important to put all your energy into that one life you're working with, because that one action can make all the difference. Yeah.
I think that's a very befitting story that you've brought here in this forum. And if we had to put it, I think we'd say that counselors today are compassionate innovators. I mean, they're constantly, there's a lot of quick thinking on their feet about, how we all know that every day for a counselor is a new problem, it's a new challenge, and new set of issues to work with. And it's really amazing to see how counselors actually navigate through it all. And compassion, I think, very rightly said, that's so important as a quality that a counselor must possess, because you're dealing with so many different students who are different individuals, personalities, coming from different backgrounds, coming with a different set of dreams and aspirations. So definitely compassion is key in all of this. Before we have to say goodbye as we're running out of time, and we don't want to keep you away from your work since it's such a busy time at school as well. We would like to know from you, for the benefit of the other counselors joining us and other members of the education community joining us today, that according to you, what are the effective ways that you use to connect with students as a counselor, and that you would like to share with members of the fraternity today that work wonders for you?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Kritika. And I know we are running out of time, so I'll try and keep it very short. Though this is a very important question, but what I've learned from these years of counseling is that there are some key points that have stood out for me. One being that it's important to start early, because then you have that much more time with the student. And I feel it works very well to make yourself seen during the parent orientation. I'm very sure that each school has it at the beginning of the academic session. So once parents see you, they feel very comfortable, and then it just flows very freely from there, and students connect that much more simply with the college counselor. Otherwise, I've seen so many of my students feeling very intimidated when they hear the word counselor. They feel like it's not somebody who we want to approach, not as yet, and we try to really delay the entire process. So starting early is one thing. Secondly, it's very important to have those one-on-one interactions with the students, because it's only there that you will be able to really assess and gauge them. So what I tend to do is that before I meet any student, I send out a bunch of questions to all of my students, simple ones like, what do you like to do, what's your favorite space in school, what do you like to spend your time doing at home when you're not studying, what's the latest movie you've seen, is there any last article that you read that really had an impact on you, questions like these, which students will find easy to answer, because when they come to me, then we have a starting point to talk about. And I really try to use sequential questioning with them, wherein, if they tell me that, oh, we participated in this competition, then I ask them why, how come you did, what did you learn from it, what skill did you pick up, do you feel like this competition opened another opportunity for you. So what this does is that it helps them to burrow down to the core of who they are, because then they suddenly feel like, oh yeah, why did we participate in this competition? And secondly, it also teaches them to ask questions themselves, which I see missing in a lot of youngsters, probably because of the kind of education system that we have, that does not allow enough time to each student to question. But I try to use that art. It's important to inculcate it in them. So the third effective thing that I feel that counselors can use is to really brainstorm. So give students many writing tasks, that just inundate them with a lot of those tasks. Many of them are not able to come back to me with them, and they really tend to crib and complain. But I feel that it is something which is important, because it helps them to reflect on what they are doing and why they are doing it. It helps them to stay with the question, which is very important. So if they've done an internship, I'll send them many questions on what was your best day like, what contribution do you feel you made, what have you learned, and so on and so forth. And this just helps them to understand if it is something that they want to continue with or not. So brainstorming, writing tasks is another thing. Fourthly, what I started doing is that I get students together in bunches of 2 or 3, and I get them to review their work. Like, they tend to share feedback on each other's essays. So it teaches them what it means to give feedback, and it also teaches them to how to critically review another person's work, and also helps them understand what we go through, when we have to review essays and, what perspective we have to look at the essay from. So it's a very, very useful exercise. That's another, effective thing that any counselor can employ. And lastly, I would say that, just as counselors, it's very important to be up to date with what's going on in the world. So, very important for a counselor to be well read and to be aware and to be able to take back relevant opportunities that are there for students, because we cannot expect them to do all the research by themselves, right? They have a lot happening and going on. So, very important to be up to date as far as that is concerned. And for that, I would really suggest that one should definitely have a ready reckoner as far as resources go. Just a list of resources which one can jump into, use, and share with students whenever it is that they need it. And lastly, but most importantly, I always and always tell a student to keep telling at every step what they're liking and not liking about the way I am doing things. So it's a very open exchange of ideas, and it really normalizes everything for them. They just feel that we are on a, we are equal. It's not that the counselor is somebody superior and I'm somebody inferior. So that constant feedback mechanism is there in place so that the student, feels that they are equal partners in this journey of the college application process. Yeah.
I think, these are really valuable inputs that you've shared with us today. So, starting early, definitely, I think this is something that's very important rather than rushing everything towards the end and sort of not giving enough time to each step in the process. Starting early just makes it a lot easier for them to just start looking to themselves and figure out what is it that they want to do. Even I think the idea of brainstorming and writing down everything was just when you give a child the option to write, it just helps them collect, like how it does with all of us, helps us collect our thoughts and put our thoughts together about, what is it that we want to do. So a lot of writing assignments definitely are a great step in that direction. What I absolutely love is the peer review, right? I mean, getting your peers to review what you're writing, which helps them understand that what it's like to be at the seat of a counselor, as well as for them to, like you said, very rightly said, to develop like critical analytical skills about how to critically analyze things, etc. And feedback, I'm so glad somebody from this ecosystem is talking about it, talking about students and teachers being on the same plane and sort of cutting down the hierarchy that exists in the power dynamics, which is feedback is so important. It's so important for us also to be able to improve. It's also so important for us to bring some sort of, equal level in that relationship. So I think that's so amazing to hear, Chandni, that you're actually implementing that in your office at the Modern School Vasant Vihar. I mean, really, I think these are extremely valuable inputs for the fellow educators who are joining us today. I hope you're all taking notes because this is coming from the immense experience that Chandni has while she's been working at the Model School Vasant Vihar. It really has been such an enriching conversation, Chandni, to be hearing from you. So many inspiring thoughts, thought-provoking ideas, and I'm really, really grateful for you to take for being able to take out the time and joining us today, because I know as we speak today, it's such a busy time for school counselors. I mean, there's so much happening with decisions coming out, applications, the Indian universities applications. The schools have also just physically restarted. So we know it's a crazy time for all of you. So really a big thank you to you for taking out the time and joining us today. It's really been a fabulous conversation.
No, thank you so much, Kritika, and thank you to Smriti as well. I really enjoyed this discussion, and honestly speaking, I feel that these discussions are so important because they also allow us as counselors to, step back and reflect on what we are doing, which is very, very important. It's important to keep reinventing ourselves. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
I'm so happy to hear that. I mean, that's what we are all here for, which is to be learning, unlearning, and learning from each other. So, with those parting thoughts, I would like to thank all our audience members for joining us on a weekly basis. And we're going to be back again on next Thursday with a fresh episode at 5 p.m. Till then, everybody, stay safe, keep wearing your masks. Hopefully, the pandemic has subsided, but we still need to keep our guards up. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for your time.